Hi folks, and welcome to a new episode of The Franchise Entrepreneur. And today I'd like to talk to you all about franchise sales and how to attract new franchisees into your business, particularly if you're a new start or an early start business. Now there are a number of ways in which you can look to attract potential franchisees into your business, and these can be broken down into a number of areas. So word of mouth, creating a personal brand or a business brand, online portals and forums and groups to join, magazines, so that whether those are online or whether they're still the old paper methods, both are still very popular, trade press, Google Ads, LinkedIn and Facebook, and obviously any other social media platforms that are relevant to your particular business. Now let's start with word of mouth. This is the old-fashioned way that a lot of businesses used to grow. You built your reputation, and people would then talk about your business, and you build your business network via pure old-fashioned word of mouth. Contrary to probably popular belief, some of the old-fashioned methods are still very applicable and also still very important. Word of mouth is still a really powerful way of you introducing new franchises into the business. Now that can be word of mouth via your friends and family network. It could be via business networking. So if you're someone that goes to local business network evenings or mornings, it's quite easy to build word of mouth of what your business is all about via these kind of networks as well. And also, once you've also established your franchise and your franchise is hopefully successful, that extension to your network, which is your franchisees network, so they're obviously going to talk about you and hopefully talk about you in a glowing way, because they're being successful and they're doing well, and that again attracts new franchisees or new prospects. And the big advantage of this kind of recruitment is that you quite often are dealing with people that you know or know of or know a lot about your business already, and it's less friction. There's obviously no initial cost of you having to market via that kind of network, because it's free, it's word of mouth. So you're not paying any recruitment fees or advertising fees. So straight away your purchase costs of that franchisee are a lot lower. And like I said, generally speaking, if it's word of mouth, they tend to have done a lot of research on you already before they then approach you, or indeed, they know an awful lot about your business. So again, it's less friction and can quite often be a quicker process as well. Create a brand. Now, when I say create a brand, right from day one, you should be looking at your own personal brand, which I've mentioned before in the previous podcast. So you should be looking at your own way in which you're perceived online. So information that's about you that's online. So that can be your Facebook, your company website, all social media platforms, LinkedIn, etc. So people are able to do some research on you, and you present yourself in the best possible way. And that can be, your personal story on those platforms that enable people to get to know you better. Make sure you're doing lots of posts, lots of content that tell people about your business, but also about you personally, and you start building up a personal brand that's about you, but also on your business socials, that you're also putting plenty of content out there, that it's refreshed, that it looks up to date, that your menus or information about your particular business is on there, lots of photos, and again also cross that with some personal information and background information about your story, about how you started and where you're going and what your plans are, so they can do an awful lot of research on you before they've actually even met you, and that can cut down on some of the friction, some of the time that you might waste in otherwise having to go over a lot of stuff that they all hopefully already know about you. And of course, making sure that all your branding, all your brochures, all your literature is all up to date, but it's all heavily branded and cements the message that you're continuously and constantly putting out there on your social media. So it's all consistent and it all builds up a good picture and consistent picture of what you and your brand are and what your vision and what you stand for are. So create your brand, and that's personal and business wise. Online portals. So online portals, I'm talking about in the UK, we have ones that are called Franchise Info, and I say in the UK because I know I've got some followers from Europe and the States. So we've got Franchise Info, Franchise Direct, to name just a couple. Most franchise portals or information or recruitment, so I would say now pretty much online, although there are magazines which I'll come to in a minute, but most of it's migrated on to online now. Some are better than others. Some allow you to put videos, obviously being able to download your brochure or inquiries, being able to download your company information on. Also email blasts, they allow, depending on what kind of package you pay for. So there's various packages on some of these ones that I've mentioned. You can go for the basic one, which will allow you to put your basic information on there, listed with hundreds of other businesses. You'll be in a category that's relevant to you. And then there are ones that you pay more and more money for that will give you more and more options. So will allow you to do videos, allow you to do maybe 3 or 4 email blasts out to the portal's database. So they're quite a useful way of bringing in prospective franchisees, but I do warn you that you will get a lot of time wasters on these people who ask for information, who basically tire kickers. You're going to get probably dozens of requests during the course of a week, of which you'll get a very small percentage that are actually genuinely interested or in a position to actually go forward with that. But unfortunately, you've got to kiss a few frogs to find your Prince Charming, and that's unfortunately the way in which it goes. It's a relatively small percentage of inquiries that actually lead to a full-blown franchise, but it is something that is out there. It's one of the most used ways to bring in inquiries. So again, have a look at that. That can range from anywhere between £1,000 and £4,000 a year, depending on what package you take and who your provider is, and whether you want to use multiple providers. I would suggest you don't use multiple providers, because anyone genuinely interested in a franchise, there's probably only about 4 of these portals in the UK to go to, and if they're genuinely interested, there's probably only 2 main ones, and the chances are they're going to go to both of them. So it's a waste of time spending your money on both of them. Put them on one or the other. Otherwise, you'll get the same inquiries on both platforms. You don't want to waste that money, because it can be expensive once you start adding all of this up. Right, magazines. There's magazines like Franchise World, who are online but also do the physical magazine and go into places like WH Smith, also go into quite a few airlines. So depending on your customer profile or the profile of the franchisee that you're looking for, you may decide that that's a good option for you. So if it's an Emirates airline, which I think is the Emirates or Etihad or British Airways or something like that. It's going to be some of them put them into the seats, so you may get a businessman or something like that will be interested. It may be your demographic that it's targeted to, so could be an interesting one for you to do. We've done it once before in the past. It didn't work for us, and they do tend to be relatively expensive compared to the online portals for what you're getting. So you may get fewer inquiries, but they might be of a higher standard. Trade press is a good one, and normally you can get into those relatively cheaply if you can do an interesting backstop story for them. You could get free press in that respect, or you may have to pay to do an ad within them. So again, they're good because if it's within the trade press, then it's within your catchment area and you're likely to attract people who are genuinely looking for this kind of investment. Now there's one other one I didn't mention before, and it's exhibitions. We've tried exhibitions in terms of franchising, mixed results. We've had some very good ones. London exhibition, the Olympia one that we did a good few years ago was very successful. We got some very good franchisees from that, and high net worth franchisees. But we got probably 350 inquiries from that 2-day exhibition. It probably cost us 10 grand in total, and we signed up 2 multi-unit franchises from it, so it more than paid for itself, by a long way. But that's not a great return on 350 inquiries, is it? But that's the kind of thing that you can expect. We also did a couple of other exhibitions outside of London. They were not successful at all. We didn't get any business from those. We got a lot of inquiries, probably just as many as we did from London, but they just weren't as good quality inquiries. So again, can be very expensive. You have to be careful again on how far you're pushing your budget, and on if you're trying to do too many things, you could find yourself wasting a lot of money. It might be better for you to just focus on one of the areas or 2 of the areas that I'm talking about. Then there's ads, so Google ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. This is something that we are only just starting to try now, so I know a lot of other franchisees have been doing it for a while. We've been a bit slow on this side of things, purely because we've been getting organic growth and generic inquiries that we've not had to do any of this advertising. Now we're trying to ramp it up a little bit. It's an area that we're exploring, so I'll let you know how successful that is, but I would suggest that your reach on Google ads, etc. is quite relevant if you target it properly, and you can get far-reaching coverage on it. And also it's potentially cheaper route per click than most of the other areas that I've spoken about previously. Now, of course, existing franchisees are probably your best advert. Do a good job with them, the people that they will talk to, the networks that they move around themselves. You're likely to get more interested franchisees and ones that are more clued into what you already do, are already potentially within the sector that you're involved in, and have also done an awful lot of homework on you already. So existing franchisees are probably your best advert and can quite often be your most successful introduction into new potential franchisees, because they may introduce family, friends, etc. And also, if you've got a franchisee who's already part of a network, so say for example, you have a franchisee who also owns a Subway or a Papa John's or a Domino's, not only do they have their friends and family, but they will also have their business connections within a group that is already in your sector, who are already active investors and looking around for potential other investments. So again, it's a very good route for you to really exploit. Friends and family, friends and family can be a good route to expand your franchise network. Again, they know you, you know them. You've already got a strong basis to potentially help both them and also yourself in expanding your brand. When I first started franchising, my first franchisee was a friend of the family, and that worked out very well for them, and it worked out very well for us. It also meant that we could learn the franchising business with a little less pressure on us, and we also had a franchisee that was a little bit more forgiving, because you will make mistakes when you first start franchising. So that worked out very well for us, and that's a good way of piloting your franchise with a franchisee that is maybe more supportive, more understanding, and more forgiving. Another way of attracting franchisees is talk to professional networks, so people like accountants, solicitors. You'll find that they quite often have investors who are looking for franchises. One of the ones for us is that we've spoken to a number of accountants and solicitors who deal with overseas investors who are looking for visas for the UK and have to meet a criteria of an investment level, and you can potentially tap into that market if you've got some contacts within those areas that specialise in overseas investors. Also, if you can potentially make your franchise EIS approved by HMRC, you'll find that you'll attract a whole new range of investors, professional investors, high net worth investors who see this as a very tax beneficial way of investing in a business. Again, it's something for you to exploit and consider. If you have the money to grow your own company network and company owned stores, this also going to attract new franchisees, because if you're able to resell, so you build your own network in order to sell some of those stores, it's a quicker route for franchisees to get into franchising, because otherwise it could take a number of months in order to go through the whole process of finding a new franchisee, finding premises, and going through paperwork, going through all the requirements, training, etc. Whereas if you've already got one ready to go, it's a much quicker route, and therefore you're likely to attract more people as well. So the more options you've got, the more potential you've got to attract more and more franchisees. Of course, so these are the forums and areas where you could potentially find new franchisees, but of course you need to make sure that everything is in place to be able to move forward with the franchisee when they do approach you. Now, one of the things that may make you stand out more and could actually speed up the process of attracting new franchisees is short period incentives. So, these could range from a contribution to equipment costs, reduced royalty fees for a period, reduced license fee or two for the price of one in terms of license fees. So you'll pay for one license, but you'll have the ability for 2 units. Or legal fees paid for. All of these little things could help speed up the process of recruitment and make you more attractive to potential franchisees. Now, there's one area that I haven't mentioned so far, and that's consultants. Consultants can play an important part in your recruitment drive. I've certainly used them in the past. I've had some good results, I've had some bad results. You have to be very clear on what it is that you want the consultants to do, and it's also, what stage do you bring a consultant in? a consultant is likely to offer you a database of prospects that they've maybe built up over the years, potential good pipeline of investors who are potentially looking and have previously invested in startup franchises that they may already know. So it could be a quicker route for you to attract investors. However, if they are simply going to do all the above things that I've mentioned before in terms of putting you onto portals, putting you into magazines, etc., and all they're really offering is a vetting surface to filter out time wasters, I would suggest the thousands that you pay these firms would be then better spent elsewhere, particularly in your early years, because these can be expensive. There's no ifs or buts about it. Using a consultant could actually be the most expensive one out of all those options that I've mentioned. But if they are well established and have got a pipeline of investors that have previously invested in other franchisees, then they could be an attractive option for you. But you have to talk to the individual consultants and ascertain whether they've got a good track record, who they've represented in the past, what kind of contacts that they've got, and how many franchisees that they believe that they could introduce over the course of the year. Now, I've mentioned price for consultants. If you do take a consultant, they will usually look to be paid via a retainer. Not always, but more often than not, a retainer plus a percentage of each license fee or new franchisee that they introduce and is fully signed up. So you not only pay the retainer, you will pay a percentage of your license fee. So if your license fee is $15,000, the chances are they will probably take 25 to 30% of that, in addition to a monthly retainer that you pay for them. So this can be really expensive. This can really add up to a lot of money. My advice is to resist, where'd that come from? Resist this route or this pricing structure, as it's not the great incentive for the consultant, and in my opinion, doesn't equal value for money. When I was using a consultant, I paid no retainer. I paid on results. So I paid a percentage per sign up, and they got nothing if the business, if it didn't materialize as a fully signed up franchise. That way they maintained an incentive to make sure that they saw it all the way through and introduced the franchisee, and it didn't fall away, and I wasn't paying a retainer out each month for what could have been them sitting on the hands doing very, very little. So, in summary, I think the best advice that I could give is if you're in your early stages, you're looking for your first franchisee, I would personally look to do your own marketing on the forums and portals that I mentioned first and foremost. Make sure that your own personal branding and that branding of your business is consistent, and you do lots of content on social media, because that is the route that most inquiries I think will come through. And certainly even if you were doing them on the portals, you will then find people who will then be checking up on your website and on your own personal Facebook pages, etc. So try and keep it consistent. Think of yourself as part of the brand. Make sure it's consistent information you're putting out there. Put a backstory on your social media, telling people how you started, why you started, what you're hoping to achieve. Tell them about your business and share information and put content out there. But try first to do it yourself. I think once you've built up maybe one or two franchisees, and hopefully it's successful, you will also then added another dimension of word of mouth from your existing franchisees, and also some of the networks that you'll be involved in at that point, including supply chain, because suppliers will talk about you as well to other companies, and your network will just get bigger and bigger. So try that first. Personally, I would leave the consultants to the end, or until you are have gained some scale, and then maybe you can leverage the consultant's time more effectively and in a more viable way when you are a bit bigger, and it becomes a choice of whether you take on a full-time employee to handle franchise inquiries, or indeed you then look to the consultants to leverage that. So I hope you found this useful. Again, please do leave reviews and comments. It's much appreciated, and we will have join me again next week for the next episode of the Franchise Entrepreneur.